about you. Practically everybody.
That's awesome. And welcome, everybody. This is Brian King. I'm with Lisa Hearing, who's one of my clients. And the reason we're getting together is because I had a bit of an insight this morning into the ADHD brain, particularly mine, and how it relates to time management. And I tend to flesh out and put my ideas better together in conversation with other people. And I will also explain why that is in service of understanding how my brain works. So thank you, Lisa, for taking out time to help me with this. And I can't tell you how I came to this. I was driving back for a doctor's appointment, and I was listening to something on the radio, and something just clicked, and all of these things started falling into place. So I will share what I came up with, and you can ask me questions about it to help me clarify it, or you can say, man, Brian, that makes no sense. Go back to the drawing board. It's entirely up to you. But one thing that has stymied me and other people with executive function challenges like time management is being productive, being efficient in whatever time frame you have. Whether it's you got an hour to do homework, or you've got an entire morning to do administrative stuff, to get ready for a webinar or a client session, whatever, but everything just seems to always be in disarray. And we are given encouragement to use lists and reminders. And for some people, that's golden. And for other people, it's a complete waste. And we really don't know why. And my insight was about how our brains organize information, or don't for that matter, and how it can be a barrier to us using accommodations. So having this understanding of how the brain works, if this is something that generalizes, I don't know. That's one of the reasons I'm making this video, is to put it out there to hear from people like, yes, this is true for me, or man, Brian, that's just you, and keep it away. I don't want to catch it, or it's something that's maybe for a small group, or we'll see who it applies to. But one thing I realized about my brain many, many years ago, and it became even clearer today, is I do not remember my life sequentially. Because when you look at how time is measured, it's measured in a linear way.
Right.
When you look at a timeline in math, it's a line that has different segments and it goes forward. And before I started recording, you and I were talking about shiny object syndrome.
Right.
And how we're kind of on a track, but that track is never linear.
No.
I mean, if anything, if you listen to some time travel theories, there are a lot of branches that happen. Time is not one line. Time is here, then something happens, and it branches off. So there's an entirely new timeline with the same people, but they're having a different life because of that change. And then you're on this trajectory, okay? But our attention does that. We start off, ooh, shiny object. And, oh, here's another shiny object. But we may never make it back to the starting point because we don't think that our life unfolds in linear fashion.
That makes a lot of sense.
So it doesn't occur to us that we need to find our way back to the line.
Right.
Because linear is counterintuitive. And another thing that I remember is because my attention is off and on, it's not sustained, right?
Right.
There are people, and my wife is amazing at this. There was a conversation that took place or something she watched, and she can tell me, start to finish, everything that happened. Because her attention, I saw it look a surprise. Me too. I can't do that. Because she can sustain her attention all the way through. People with ADHD don't do that.
Right.
We come in and out, in and out, in and out. So what ends up happening is we remember things in chunks. Think about a photograph. So let's say we can pay attention for 5 seconds. Okay, now there's that picture that's 5 seconds long. It is a chunk. It's a memory. It's an experience. Okay, well, we don't think linearly, whereas we would go step 1, step 2, step 3. We think of, I got all these disconnected pieces, all these moments in time that I don't know how to sequence. That's an executive function, sequencing, putting things in order. If you struggle with that, as I do, Your brain doesn't naturally look to sequence things. It doesn't know
Right.
what to do with them. So you have all of these pictures of all of these moments. And because you didn't pay attention from start to finish, like my wonderful wife, what you're missing, imagine you're putting two pictures side by side. And
Okay.
let's say the pictures were taken a minute apart.
Okay.
These pictures do not tell you what happened in between.
Right.
So we have all of these memories or images in our heads with all of these gaps. And we
Yes.
have no idea how these things relate to each other.
Right. How to put it, I want to say back together, but kind
Right,
of.
because we're not
Okay.
thinking sequentially, we're not thinking linearly. So when someone says you just need to organize these or you just need to put it in a list, if you have difficulty sequencing, you have no idea how these things relate to each other in a list.
Right.
Or you might be able to figure out if you talk it through with someone. And I often have to do that, where I say, you know what, I think I know what I should do first, but I'm not sure what I should do after that.
Right.
And some people think, oh, it's common sense, it's easy. Yeah, it is if your brain does it.
Right. But otherwise, it's not readily apparent at all. And
Right.
I don't know if this goes on with you either, but when somebody does try to sequence something for me, and a good example of this is somebody's trying to give me directions to go somewhere. First of all, I'm not auditorily that great to begin with when somebody's telling me something. But I find what happens is, one, I'm paying attention. I'm trying to pay attention to one. Two, okay, I'm still with you. Barely. Three, oh, God, I'm having trouble holding on to three. If they say one more word, it doesn't even have to be part of the directions. If they just say one more thing, 1, 2, and 3 completely go away. I mean, completely go away. I have no idea what you just said. I don't know if that's ADHD. It could be the TBI. I don't know.
That's a working memory issue. It's an executive
But I
function problem.
drop everything at that point.
You and I have the same issue. My working memory, and here's another metaphor for you, is like a small balloon.
Okay.
You can put in so many things before the balloon pops. When it pops, all the air escapes. So I have 3 as my limit as well.
Okay.
I mean more than 3 things, and the balloon pops, and everything goes.
Yep. Exactly.
So you have to know what your carrying capacity is, and sometimes part of self-advocacy is, okay, how many things are you going to tell me? If it's more than 3, I need to find some way to write this down.
Yep. That's exactly what I say to people.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is one way you compensate for the fact that not only do you have difficulty remembering or sequencing things beyond 3 items, but you know maybe you need it visually as opposed to auditorily.
Right.
Maybe you need it demonstrated. You know, hey, well, this looks good on paper. Can you show me how it's done once? So I have that point of reference. So anything that you can do to get the information you need the way you need it so that you can be productive.
Right.
So I guess the thing that I really want to impress upon people that are watching this is to understand that part of being scattered isn't just about focus. Like, oh, I wasn't paying attention, you know, shiny object, I was scattered. It also has to do with how your brain looks at reality to begin with. It doesn't look at the world or experience in this extended narrative where you linearly can see your life unfolding, and you can say, first this happened, and then this happened, and it led to this, and so on. In my brain, and maybe in many others, it looks like these scattered pictures that you know stuff happened, you can't quite remember when it happened, you don't know if you remember it in the right order, and you don't necessarily know what to do with it. It's just there.
So do you have tools? Because you know that's going to be my next question. Like, okay, given the fact that this is the case, and I would say I experience life just like that. That's what it feels like to me as well. So we might be the only 2 ones, but I doubt it.
If there's 2 of us, then there's 3, then there's 4.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
This is one of those times where you have to do usually the one thing that people are most reluctant to do.
Which is?
Ask for help.
Okay.
because there are people out there, like I said, going back to my wife again, I married the right person, who have incredibly intact executive functions. One of the examples I use is I want to create a spreadsheet. I could literally spend days experimenting, tweaking, and still not be able to make it do what I want it to do. Then I tell my wife, this is what I need it to do. She'll sit down, and 20 minutes later, she'll say, here you go. Because her brain just does it. What we need more than anything are duplicatable templates where all we need to do is fill in the blanks. This goes here, this goes here, this goes here. Because one thing, and I don't know if this is true for you, I'm convinced that a GPS was invented by somebody with bad sense of direction. I may be wrong, but it makes sense for me because I can't create the map, but I can follow the map.
Right.
I have a hard time creating a plan, but I can follow the plan if you give me it.
Right.
So if somebody can help create templates based on what your goals are, they can help you figure out the how in a duplicatable way. So if you're creating a list of to-dos or habits that you need to do to run a business or run your life, each day you have the same template. And one of those very basic templates is a calendar. I use Google Calendar.
Who can do this?
Well,
who can do this? Because, you can put things on a calendar, and there are certain things that's very appropriate to go onto a calendar, an appointment, for example. But there's a difference between actual appointments and to-dos. And I will say that once I start to split things, once I start to get too many things, I got to look over here. Here's the calendar. I got to look over here. Here's the to-do list. I start to have difficulties. I'll look at the calendar. I'll forget to look at the to-do list. But
I have a solution.
Okay, I'm all ears
because I have the same problem. I love Google Calendar because it's digital. I take my phone everywhere, and it's always on my phone. I also discovered a program it's not too pricey. It's called G Tasks. The letter G, Tasks, TASKS. And it is a very nice, user-friendly to-do list maker.
Okay.
And it synchronizes with Google Tasks. So when you put the to-dos on that list, it also merges with your calendar.
Does it make your calendar look too busy?
It depends how much you put on it. For me, it is much more important to have everything in one place.
Okay.
Because I'm like you. If I use a tool and people who don't have ADHD won't get this. Even though I used that tool yesterday, because of my working memory being so small, if I'm focused on something that really fills up my attention, I can forget about that tool.
Oh, yes.
Even though I just used it yesterday. So one thing I know I always do is check my calendar.
Right.
That's something I never forget to do. So if there are other things already there, then they will catch my attention sooner than later. Okay. And I can be reminded, oh, yeah, that's right. I got to do that today. So it's the one-stop shop thing that, like I said, I deal with sometimes a very busy-looking calendar because it saves me more time because I'm not forgetting as much. Things don't get procrastinated as easily. I don't miss deadlines because I forgot to check something because of my working memory. Having it all there in one spot helps me be more productive because it's always in my face.
Okay, so quick question then. So actual appointments, to-dos, and let's talk about to-dos for just a minute. Some to-dos are, I need to do that today. Like I definitely need to do it today. Some to-dos are, I'd like to get to that at some point this week. But if I don't get to it today, that's fine. I don't really necessarily need to put it on my calendar for today. And then there are to-dos that are very broad life things. Maybe I need to narrow those down, but I don't know.
Well,
I
the
need, I
longer
need to get
term thing,
outside more.
yeah,
I don't know.
the there's something called SMART goals. Are you familiar with some
Okay.
SMART goals? I can't remember. It's an acronym. I can't remember all of them offhand, but it's like specific, measurable,
Actionable.
achievable,
Oh, achievable. Okay.
achievable, and actionable is good too. And
Repeatable. Repeatable. No.
I can't remember. And I think time limited is the last one.
Okay.
There's got to be some kind of deadline that you impose upon yourself to give yourself that time pressure. Because if it's
Right.
open-ended, like someday, ADHD people are master procrastinators. And
Yeah.
the more open-ended you leave it, the more likely it is not to get done.
Good point.
Because another thing I learned about how people with ADHD conceive of time, and this is from, I can't remember his name, big shot out there in the ADHD realm. But he said that people with ADHD see time in two ways. It's either now or not now.
Yeah.
So somebody that's always said, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. That just means other than now. So later could mean within the next 20 years. Or I promise I will get to this before I die. I can't be more specific than that, but that's my promise to you. So having that time pressure, and I see this working with my boys as well, having that time pressure is helpful. But here's another funky thing about time though. Again, speaking from my own experience, is when I get an alert on my calendar that there's an appointment coming up, in my brain, that is not a measure of time having passed. Like, oh man, it's been an hour already? I don't look at it that way. The way I see the reminder is, okay, it's time to stop what I'm doing and transition back to this.
Right.
So it's a reminder to transition. It's not a prompt that tells me, oh, it's almost quitting time. You know, I don't see that time has elapsed because my brain is just so present with what I'm doing.
Right.
So, you know, sometimes people with ADHD will be criticized with, you know how long I've been waiting, or, you know, with the chronic lateness all the time. Oh man, you know, you're such and such late. For some people with ADHD, the fact that time has passed is not even on their radar. They just know that, okay, I'm supposed to get to this place by this certain time on my calendar. Oh, but one more thing. And I can't forget to do this. I got to go do that. You do 10 things, and more time has passed.
Oh,
But you're not really paying attention to the fact that time has passed. You're just like, oh, that's right. I got to go do this thing. Then you go do the thing. You show up late, and everybody's upset with you. You know, you're wondering, well, what's the deal? I'm here. I'm here like I'm supposed to be. Is it sounding familiar?
It's sounding incredibly familiar. And you add to that, for me personally, the TBI. And when the TBI happened, I literally have zero concept of how much time has passed, what time it might be. I mean, I could look outside and say, okay, the sun is high in the sky. I guess it's somewhere around noon. But I have zero, so none. There's none left at all. And that's exactly what happened. So you add that to, you know, shiny object. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, let me look at this. And before you know it, I'm late. But late is bad because late is interpreted by most people as disrespect.
Yeah, and that's why it is absolutely imperative that people with ADHD get a handle on that. And I don't want to get too much into that because that's not really the purpose of the conversation. Okay. Because we have to look at there's always some unique nuance in everybody's mind. You know, no ADHD person is exactly the same. And it's important to look at the nuance about why are they late? You know, there could be some social anxiety. You know, am I wearing the right things? So is so-and-so going to be there? I got to make sure that I say the right things. And it may have nothing to do with time management.
Right.
It could have everything to do with anxiety. So I need to know that about the person before I can suggest any kind of remedies for them. But back to what we were saying before, the people that have the intact executive functions is you basically explain to them, this is my challenge. This is what I need. Is this something that you are comfortable helping me with?
Okay.
And if somebody's really good at it and they love doing it, chances are they're going to help you. And then you can create a template with them and you can see how well it works for you and go back and tweak it if you need to.
Okay.
And that's one of the
So
beauties of a lot of these.
They're saying you're not the person? Are you saying you're not the person to create that template?
No, I do have strategies.
Okay.
I do have templates. I do have strategies because I've needed them.
I would actually like to, at some point, not necessarily on this call, I would like to at some point have you really go into detail, show us one of them. I'd like to see, like, this is my specific strategy or template for this.
We can do that.
Yeah, I would love that, because maybe that would help me to create some of my own or get some help to create some.
Well, and we definitely want you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because one thing that can really stymie us as well, there's so many things the ADHD brain does that are beautiful, but other things that are frustrating as hell.
Yeah.
And one of those tendencies is to look at our to-dos in an all or nothing way. There's this young lady that I work with who's a 16-year-old girl who goes into the all or nothing very quickly. So she'll look at her entire homework list and say, I can't do all this. And I'll say to her, you don't have to do all of it. You have to do some of it, then some more, then some more, then it gets done. But she looks at everything as though it were one activity. And then she overwhelms herself. Oh, this is too much. I can't handle this. Because she doesn't know how to break it down. That's not her default way of handling a problem. Okay, we need to chunk this, and we need to figure out where it's going to go on our schedule. Her brain does not do that. So she needs to be reminded that the important thing she needs to identify is the first step. What is she going to do first? Because the directions that she's given from her teacher, once she reads them, she's like, oh, this makes sense. I understand what the teacher wants. If the teacher's that clear, sometimes they're not. You need to go back and ask questions. But for her, so much of it is the anxiety of, holy cow, there's so much to do. But once
it goes back to what you said about not thinking sequentially, because when you say, well, I need to figure out the first thing, first means you understand that there's a sequence and you can understand which is first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And sometimes, many times I need to talk it out. Where are all these things that I need to get done and I need to consider, and I'm not sure where I need to begin. And, hence why we're having this conversation. I'm very auditory. So when I put things out there, things tend to process better in my brain and come together because I'm talking it out.
Okay, that makes sense.
Talking it out also slows my brain down and helps me get more focused because I need to pause to choose the words I want to use and then get them out. So it's like you have this huge snowstorm and then you funnel it into your mouth to get it to simplify. So that's one reason why talking it out can be helpful. Or other people like to write it out.
Yep.
They're more kinesthetic. They want to do it in a journaling fashion as opposed to a monologue, which works best for me. So there are so many directions to take this based on the individual. But the main reason that I wanted to put this out there is to shed some light on just what your brain does with information, so you can understand why when someone asks you with the assumption that you can just do things linearly, that you have some insight into why it's not so easy.
Right.
Because you have all of those disconnected photographs with all these gaps in the middle, depending on how often you space out. And you have the pieces, but you have no idea how they relate to each other because there are facts missing.
Right.
Because through no fault of your own, you lost focus. I don't care how much medication you take or how much coffee you drank that morning, you're still going to space out because that's what ADHD is. Now, you might not do it as much, which is a bonus, because you can pay attention a little bit longer and catch more information, but there's still going to be gaps.
Right.
And your brain is not going to say, well, this happened first, this happened second, this happened third. We need to go back and ask questions to find out what we missed in the middle. Our brain doesn't do that. It just says, oh, here are these 3 disconnected photos. Isn't that nice? No idea what to do with them. No idea what to do with them. And that's the ADHD brain and why it can be, for many reasons, incredibly frustrating for us. So
I really appreciate you, explaining this, putting this out there, because I think it's important from a lot of standpoints. One, can we get strategies that will help? But also because I think there's a lot of shame attached to that.
absolutely.
Or can be, shame where you're just like, okay, I know I'm an intelligent person. Why can I not get my act together?
Yeah. And when you see so many people that seem to have it together,
right.
why can everybody else be so organized and on time? And this person who's showing me this, they make it sound so easy. Is it that I'm just dumb? Why am I missing this? And
what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
So I think that, this, I would say, normalizes this to a certain extent, or just say, okay, this is what goes on factually speaking. This is what can happen in the ADHD brain. Okay, with no shame attached to that. It just is what it is. And let's figure out what kind of strategies we can have to help us,
Yeah. And also learn to have a lot more compassion towards yourself. When you understand that your brain works a certain way and it's not a deficit, it's just a fact.
Right.
This is just simply what my brain does. I'm aware of it. I'm not making excuses for it. I'm asking for help.
Right.
Because I want to be more productive. I need the tools to allow me to produce and circumvent these executive functions. And that's really where the focus needs to be.
Yeah. I would also love for you to do a post, because you referenced here in this conversation, the wonderful things about the ADHD brain. I'd really like to hear more about that, because I think that would help with the self-talk as well, or the shame as well.
Let's do an additional video on that. That'd be a fun content.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be good.
So let's finish this one up for now. Thank you again, Lisa, for helping me out with this. Having you on to discuss it absolutely helped me flesh it out and be more specific. So
Great.
I appreciate you helping me with that. So
My
thank
pleasure.
you, everybody, for watching. I hope this has been helpful for you. Leave a comment or ask questions so we can dig deeper into this, because the more thoroughly you understand it, the more use it can be to you. So have an awesome day, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.